we have this as a sure and steadfast anchor of the soul, a hope that enters into the inner shrine behind the curtain, where Jesus has gone as a forerunner on our behalf. In Welsh, in our culture, very much impregnated with the Welsh scripture and with the hymnology attached to it, this phrase is very often used. Ti draw i'r llen, beyond the veil. It is used often in the context of death and graves. It's not often that one celebrates Holy Mass in the presence of an undertaker, here purely by faith, and not this time by duty. And on a personal level, it is a joy to have an undertaker of living faith. I know of 3. You're one of them. I know of one in the Kells area and another in the Athboy area. And it is always a joy to have them, rather than anyone else, like yourself, taking care discreetly, and that's an important word, of this sending on of the soul to God. The undertaker has to handle pain all his life, treading on eggshells, saying the right thing, never a word out of place at a moment of great grief and sorrow, all day. It's a challenging vocation and a blessing for the Church to have a good one. This is the feast of a great conqueror when it comes to death. His name has been played upon by authors. St. Augustine has a great sermon on him. Vincent, it's its correspondent in Vincente, it's actually the conquering one. And these authors have seen how in essentially a short span of time, in a maximum of torture and pain beyond what is humanly possible, because they really gave the maximum to Vincent, he conquered. He conquered all the power of the Roman Empire. It was the last great persecution, Diocletian 304, and he was the first martyr of Spain, Saragossa, which is a corruption of the old equivalent of Caesarea Augusta, the city of Caesar Augustus in Spain, and he would be therefore the end of a great army of early Christian martyrs, but the beginning essentially also eventually of what was going to be difficult for that peninsula, because there was going to be a new wave of persecution down the line which was not foreseeable. It was the Moors. And that country is a phenomenon because it's one of the few that managed to push them back. And ever since, of course, they wanted it back, Andalusia, because any bloc which is once possessed by Islam has to be reconquered in their mind. But it was an interesting case. You know probably the story, don't you, why St. James is so popular. It is reported, and I think reliably, that he intervened. And it's not in vain that he's called Matamor, the hammer of the Moors. Those who used to slay them on his behalf were using power also given from on high, because he was appearing, it would seem, and giving them power. So it's interesting what happened in that particular peninsula, which became one of the greatest blocs on earth, notably during the Counter-Reformation. How many things have come from Spain, and even to this day things still come from there, like the Opus Dei, very powerful. The whole Jesuit movement, of course, was born of a Spaniard. I leave that and park it for a minute to return to where I started. Beyond the veil. You undertakers are in a frontier point, not only of geography, but of cosmic time. It's the land where 2 dimensions meet. You're not usually there at the moment of death. You pick up the consequences, although you can be forewarned that somebody is on the way. And already people sometimes start to prepare at that point, as you know. But priests can be either in the immediate vicinity of death, at it, or immediately after it. And I used to warn them in Italy always, because they were afraid of calling the priests in case the person got the message. And it's not healthy. And I always used to say to them, chiamateci prima, call us first. It's important that the priest be there before and not after, when the person is still lucid. All eternity can be in some way overturned by the presence of a priest before a lucid soul. Anyway, I want to come to the point, the moment of death, when precisely each one of us goes beyond the veil. Now some have had already in this life some kind of half lifting of the veil. I was talking to somebody yesterday in that situation, what we call NDE, when the heart stops, the soul moves on. Now, with regard to the usual state of affairs, there's no coming back. And the soul at that point, it's the same soul, but it perceives things for the first time ever in complete, and I mean complete lucidity. Why? At that point, it is no longer dependent on the five senses for its perception. It perceives directly and with greater perception, total perception, and should it have been by that stage apparently vegetal, it is no longer at all vegetal, but just as it were newly born. Oh, it was true. And at that point, immediately, and I mean immediately, the soul sees its own state and the reality that faces it. Maria Simba, of whom we were talking as it happens yesterday, has an interesting observation on the moment of death. She knew what she was talking about. She had given her life essentially as a victim for the holy souls. And as a result, she had a long experience of helping them and of what she knew from them because of their gratitude. And it would seem that she could say with some certainty that there is a moment beyond our reach, but where God is really at the maximum of his grace-filled action. We don't quite know. As in the First World War there was a no man's land for which they were fighting, both sides, so here there's a moment too which can be called a moment of no man's land between time and eternity. When there's a cosmic battle, the angels are there and the bad angels are there. And this seems to be something of the scenario, according to her. No one, and she's fairly insistent, is damned without the possibility. In other words, there is, it would seem, according to what she's given to understand, some way in which divine grace makes one last appeal, so that should there be at that point a refusal, it is made in lucidity. And she maintains that it is somewhere in the region of probably not more than 2 minutes, at the maximum 3, when things are still just about in the balance. Now do you see how therefore for us, that moment, and this applies to you, it is extremely important that that be surrounded by not talking about the football match or even the funeral, but about genuine prayer, because there the demons are around. And how people actually behave in the presence of a person at that point is frightening when one thinks of what is actually taking place and for all eternity. I just finished with one little anecdote. It's what happened, it's a true story, about a century ago in London. It was the great Baptist preacher Henry Drummond, who had a ministry for basically zeal for souls and also as an author. And he would find them as they were going out, petering out. And he came across this person who was really bit of human garbage as far as other people were concerned, but for him an immortal gem. He was a victim of, in those days was drink, it wasn't anything more, what might go with it as well, but he'd wasted his life in alcohol, and he knew it. And he was there at his bedside, and he was pleading with him. He was almost delirious, but he got him to calm down, and then in a moment of calm he said to this effect, "My brother," that's an important one, "my brother, the Lord Jesus gave himself for you. He died for you. Would you give your life to him?" And there was this pause. Now this pause was one of those pauses. It kind of matters. And all eternity was ticking in that pause. And his answer came, "No! I won't give the dog end of my life to my God." And with that, he expired.